Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel, U.S. Immigration News. We hope you're doing great. Well, in this video, we'll talk about Ted Cruz claims Biden allowed invasion of 11.5 million foreigners. Official data says otherwise. So, to get all the information, pay attention and watch the video. Through to the end, please hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification bell for upcoming episodes. So, without any further delay, let's jump into the video. In a fiery speech on the second night of the Republican National Convention, Texas Ted Cruz, an outspoken defender of former President Donald Trump's immigration policies, accused Biden of allowing an invasion of illegal aliens. Reports from federal immigration authorities say the opposite. The main leaders of the Republican Party appeared on Tuesday night, second day of the event, on the stage of the National Convention held at the Pfizer Forum in Milwaukee. But not to talk about the government plan they proposed to the electorate, but rather about immigration and the crisis experienced on the border with Mexico. Nor did they mention that the immigration system is obsolete and that it operates under the protection of a law enacted in 1965, when the scenarios were totally different from those of now. Almost 60 years later, when the causes that motivate the departure of millions of people from their nations are totally different from the time after World War II. The speeches of several former rivals of the virtual candidate for the nomination, Donald Trump, were based on harsh criticism and accusations of the immigration policy of President Joe Biden, the virtual candidate of the Democratic Party, whom they hold responsible for what they call an invasion that has been taking place since January 20, 2021, when he took office. The attacks came just 3 days after Trump was assassinated during a campaign rally in Pennsylvania, where he was shot in the right ear, and both parties publicly called for a tone down of their rhetoric to foster a climate of respect amid a heated electoral contest. Suno sabki karo multi-asset allocation funds. Calls for sanity, however, went unheeded, and the rhetoric came back and speakers did not mince words. Never before has an election been so important, said Republican Senator for Texas Ted Cruz. We are facing an invasion at our southern border. Not figuratively, a literal invasion. 11.5 million people have crossed our border illegally under Joe Biden, said the legislator, a staunch defender of the former president's zero-tolerance immigration policy, who is seeking to return to the White House for a second term. The question that arises is if Part 8 million foreigners entered the United States illegally. Cruz's statement is not new. The accusations against Biden began in 2021, when his administration began, through executive orders and memoranda, to dismantle Trump's so-called zero-tolerance policy, built on the use of the same tool that assists both presidents, the use of executive power in the face of Congress's inaction on this matter. In 2021, Republicans began talking about hundreds of thousands of foreigners entering the country illegally. In 2022, they escalated to a couple of million, and in 2023, they consolidated the term invasion, referring to numbers exceeding 11 million, a number even greater than the number of undocumented immigrants living in the United States, some for several decades and awaiting immigration reform. In September 2022, days before the close of the fiscal year, Immigration and Border Protection, BBPB, reported that the number of arrests of undocumented immigrants at the border with Mexico had surpassed 2 million, and that arrest numbers were on the rise. The report also indicated that, of those just over 2 million findings and detentions, more than 1.3 million had been repatriated and are expelled, and that many more people detained at the border were in deportation proceedings, whose cases sometimes take longer for various reasons. Another fact noted by the government is that within the number of findings and arrests, many cases involve arrests of the same person several times, so the real numbers are lower. That is, what the CBP calls single arrests or encounters. An example, in August 2022, there were a total of 203,598 arrests along the border with Mexico. Of these, CBP explained, 22A involved people who had at least one prior arrest in the previous 12 months. That is, they had already tried to enter the country, but were detained and deported or expelled, either under Title 42 to the pandemic, Title 8 of the immigration law for reasons of inadmissibility, or returned at the discretion of federal agents. Where did the 11 million come from? According to the CBP database, arrests made at the southern border between fiscal years 2021 and so far in 2024 are as follows. 1,724,695. Cote year 2022, 2,766,508. 3,201,144. Fiscal year 2024, 2,427,601. Total arrests, 10,120,022. It should be noted that the arrests or findings of 2021, those recorded between October 1, 2020 and January 20, 2021, must be charged to Trump's account. Now, between fiscal years 2021 and so far in fiscal year 2024, the CBP deported under Title VIII 168,128 foreigners, 1,154,170 foreigners, 1,505,581 foreigners, 1,362,256 foreigners. High percentations, 4,190,235 foreigners. Under Title 42, 933,372 foreigners, 1,054,504 foreigners, 550,278 foreigners. Total, 2,535,154 foreigners. Title 42 was dismantled in May 2023. Now, if you take into account the findings and arrests between fiscal years 2021 and so far in 2024, which total 10,120,022, and subtract the deportations in half or expulsions under Titles 8 and 42 in the same period of time, the result is 3,394,633. That is a difference of 8,105,367 foreigners who were mentioned in Senator Cruz's speech on Tuesday night in Milwaukee. You also have to consider the number of repeat offenses, estimated by CBP at 20. Where the 3.3 million? Indicate that the 3.3 million resulting from the difference between the findings and expulsions recorded by the CBP between fiscal years 2021 and so far in 2024 would be in process, or their cases were referred to current legal instances to continue their cases within the framework of due process immigration. One of them, asylum. It should be noted that when Trump came to the White House in early 2017, the immigration court had a backlog of about 520,000 cases, most of them asylum cases. When he handed over power to Biden in January 2021, the ER had a backlog of 1.2 million cases. In May of this year, according to data from the Transactional Records Access and Information Center at Syracuse University, the backlog of cases exceeded 3.6 million, and the number continues to grow. Attorneys and organizations defending immigrant rights also warned that due to the backlog of cases, thousands of foreigners whose cases were referred to the ER are waiting to be added to the court's master calendar. And many appointments, due to the backlog, will have to wait years to have their first date before a judge where they will have the opportunity to request asylum or any other legal remedy in force. Another question that looms is whether or not immigrants whose cases are pending or referred to the ER have legal status to stay in the United States. It depends, says Jose Guerrero, who practices in Miami, Florida. If the foreigner entered through a port of entry and CBP granted him a parole humanitarian permit, it means that that person was granted a legal path. But the one who crossed the Rio Grande, entered illegally, and is awaiting trial in an immigration court is an undocumented person, he added. Guerrero also says that many of these people who are waiting for their asylum cases to be resolved and are given a temporary work permit for humanitarian reasons do not have a defined status. Technically, they have certain immigration documents that identify them or grant them certain authorizations, but they are not guaranteed to remain in the country. Attorney Alex Galvez, who practices in Los Angeles, California, explains that they are not illegal aliens. They are exercising a right, and they are exercising it under United States and international laws. They have asylum status and some are entitled to a work permit, and they must understand that criminal laws apply to them. The law applies to them. They are not immune. They have responsibilities to the United States society, he said. Another group of migrants to consider are unaccompanied minors, who are processed under the 1997 Flores Settlement Agreement, which provides that only an immigration judge can decide their future in the United States. Between fiscal years 2021 and so far in 2024, CBP recorded 21,080 findings at the border. Successful illegal income. Successful illegal entry is the figure that allows us to know the permeability of the border and the real threat of insecurity caused by the failure to stop unauthorized crossings of foreigners into the country. In June 2022, reported that the high number of undocumented immigrants found or arrested on the southern border is used by Republicans to insinuate that they constitute a kind of invasion and become a serious threat to the country. But the speech does not detail that the majority, if not all, are either deported and placed in deportation proceedings. As for successful illegal crossings, a measure that must be considered to speak of an invasion, there are no official records. Another report noted that in 2016, the Department of Homeland Security began using a new, more precise measurement methodology to calculate successful illegal entries, a key piece of data that allows us to know how effective a government's immigration policy is. The department began issuing reports on border security metrics. In 2018, a report published in the fiscal year report for that year noted that the number of undetected crossings had fallen almost as rapidly as the number of apprehensions made by the Border Patrol on the southern border. From 851,000 in fiscal year 2000, the figure rose to 62,000 in fiscal year 2016. 3 years later, in the DHS fiscal year 2020 report, the last of the Trump presidency, it estimated that available data on successful illegal entries between fiscal years 2017 and 2018 had seen an increase, and that the above 95 effectiveness in apprehension capacity recorded between 2006 and 2016 from more than 1 million to less than 56,000 per year at the end of the Obama administration was reversing. According to the report, the methodology used to estimate successful undocumented entry showed an increase between 2017 and 2018, the first 2 years of the Trump administration, of at least 11 percentage points compared to 2016. There is no data regarding estimates of successful illegal crossings during fiscal year 2020, nor for data for fiscal year 2021, and so far in fiscal year 2022. That is all for today in this video. What are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the entire video. Hopefully, the information is useful to you. See you later in the next video. Till then, take care.
Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel US Immigration News. We hope you're doing great. Well, in this video, we will talk about Ted Cruz claims Biden allowed invasion of 11.5 million foreigners. Official data says otherwise. One of the biggest fears any immigrant faces in the US is uncertainty and instability due to the constantly shifting immigration policies and rhetoric. This anxiety is exacerbated by statements and actions from political leaders that often paint immigrants as a threat or an invasion, which can create a hostile environment. A recent example of this occurred during the second night of the Republican National Convention, where Texas Senator Ted Cruz accused President Joe Biden of allowing an invasion of illegal immigrants, despite federal immigration authorities reporting different figures. During the convention, Republican leaders focused on immigration in the situation at the Mexican border, criticizing the Biden administration policies. They did not address the outdated immigration system, which is still governed by laws from 1965 despite significant changes in global migration patterns since then. The Republican rhetoric blamed Biden for an influx of illegal immigration since he took office on January 20, 2021, using terms like invasion to describe the situation. The discourse intensified following the tragic assassination of former President Donald Trump during a campaign rally, which had prompted calls for a more respectful tone. Nevertheless, speakers like Ted Cruz continue to use strong language, claiming that 11.5 million people had crossed the border illegally under Biden administration. The figure Cruz mentioned is contentious. Reports from Custom and Border Protection (CBP) show that between fiscal years 2021 and 2024, a total of about 10 million arrests were made at the southern border. Of these, a significant number were repeat arrests, meaning the same individuals were detained multiple times. Additionally, many of those arrested were either deported or placed in deportation proceedings. Immigration lawyers and advocates point out that the actual number of undocumented immigrants living in the US is lower than the figures often cited in political rhetoric. Many immigrants are waiting for their cases to be processed, which can take years due to backlog in immigration courts. Some have legal pathways such as asylum claims or temporary work permits, but they still face a precarious existence without guaranteed permanent status. In conclusion, immigrants in the US face the fear of deportation, the challenge of navigating an outdated and overburdened immigration system, and the impact of political rhetoric that can influence public perception and policy. These factors contribute to a sense of insecurity and instability for many immigrants striving to build a better life in America.